Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I am a comic artist and film enthusiast. I have drawn some art finally for this season, and I would like to enthuse about some film. Today we are talking about Agatha All Along, Season 1 of presumably 1. I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't have my regular notes for this. We're kind of doing this off the cuff. So we're just gonna hope that through the magic of editing, this ends up being a really good video. Agatha All Along is finally done. I've been talking about each episode almost through the whole series, and it's been a really fun time kind of growing this community, talking with you guys. I've learned so much about tarot, so much. It's honestly, some people know so much about it, and it's quite impressive that you have that knowledge. It's fun kind of delving into a thing, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, I hope, but it's fun delving into a thing that isn't necessarily something I would normally watch. I'm not huge on witch stuff. It doesn't really appeal to me most of the time. The fact that this is Marvel is probably the only reason I've watched it, and I'm glad that I did because I really enjoyed the show. If I'm being honest, this would have been put in the same category as like a Hocus Pocus for me, and I don't like Hocus Pocus very much. I'm not 100% sure why this does work for me. I think that might be a factor. My favorite thing about this show is that it's not a thing made for me. I feel like I've watched a lot of things and my takeaway has been like, wow, this feels like a movie made for me. Hellboy, The Crooked Man, feels like they made a movie for John Bonjour in a computer. Agatha All Along is not a thing that was made for me. It was made for other people. Somebody else in the world sees this show and goes, this was made to fit my specific preferences of what I want for this show. And I'm not gonna lie, it's really exciting to see that for me. Not only because it's a thing that everybody, when they announced it, was kind of like, why are you making this show? Even myself, I questioned the choice to make an Agatha show. Spin-off from a, granted, very good show, about a character that is partially in that show and not really in a whole ton of comics seems like a weird call. And at the time, it kind of felt like it was piggybacking off of the enjoyment people were getting out of Catherine Hahn's character. Now I realize that they either had a very solid plan and just didn't tell us until then, or they didn't, and they're really good at making plans up on the spot. I gotta be a little more organized. Let's talk about some of the things that don't work. There was one of the episodes that I didn't make a video about, not because I hated it, but just because I was out of town and didn't have time. I don't remember which exact number that was, but it was the episode where Billy became full-blown Billy. He used his powers for the first time. He became Wiccan, sort of. Not completely, we'll get to that. Also, this is gonna be a spoiler review. I am so out of order on this one. The episode where he uses his powers for the very first time, right at the end, they play that Billie Eilish song at the end. Solid, beautiful moment. Not my favorite, and I stand by that. I think this show, much like many of the other Marvel shows, suffers occasionally from feeling like bits and pieces are kind of missing. Like we skipped something to get where we are. Almost like this was going to be a 10-episode series, and then they decided to cut down a couple episodes and mush them together. That's what the middle of this show feels like. A lot of things happen really quickly and not necessarily in a pacing that I think works super well. I'd say the most obvious example of that is the Ms. Marvel show, a show that I greatly enjoyed. That feels like 2 seasons of a show mushed together into 1 season of a show, and it's not for the better. That's not a positive thing about that show. Thankfully, Agatha doesn't suffer from that too much. It is a problem here and there throughout the episodes, but it's not that big a deal. Aside from that, it is a mystery-based show, and it asks a lot of mystery questions. I think it does a pretty good job answering most of them. Problem is, I think some of the line reads are not necessarily right. I'm trying to figure out how to even put this into words. I think sometimes a character will deliver a line in a way that's supposed to make you feel like it is a bigger deal or like we should be keying into that for the mystery, but it ends up being kind of a red herring or not that important or not part of the mystery at all. And it's kind of weird just rewatching that. If you look at these as human interactions, some of them are a little bit strange. I don't think, again, none of these problems that I have with the show are huge. They're not massive cataclysmic issues that I have at all, don't hear me wrong. But it is a thing that I think doesn't necessarily work, especially like the emphasis that they put on Ralph Bohner's character, who is back again to do nothing. This feels very much, I think, in a good and bad way, like a sequel to WandaVision. I suppose it is a sequel to WandaVision, so there is that. I think in a lot of ways, it is a very close pair with WandaVision. And that's a thing I wrestle with, because on the one side, I think that's really good, and I think they learned some lessons from WandaVision, i.e. how to end the show, what the final battle should look and feel like, and I think those lessons are applied really well in this show. On the other side, though, I think they learned possibly the wrong lesson from WandaVision by making this feel way too much like a mystery show, and then some of the reveals of the mystery are just plot. It's just plot things. There are just some moments that feel like they were trying to make us theorize online, and it ends up kind of being nothing. Nothing as egregious as the aerospace engineer that they teased in WandaVision over and over and over, and then it was just some random lady. I'm already seeing online the responses to the finale are kind of hinting at what I'm talking about and showing a problem that this show sort of created, but also is just created by general online discourse. Trying to break down what I'm saying, I was theorizing that we were going to see Mephisto. I think a lot of other people were. They even name dropped Mephisto, and I will give them credit for that. We're getting closer. But I was theorizing that we were going to see Mephisto, and there was going to be some big final reveal right at the end of the show, or near the end of the show, that was going to change everything up and reformat the whole show. And in a way that kind of did that, but they didn't do Mephisto at all. Mephisto was not involved in this show, aside from the single mention, and I'm a little disappointed just because I was excited about the idea of seeing him, but I'm seeing the responses online of other people who had that theory or similar theories and are pretty upset that that didn't happen, that they ended up doing something smaller and closer in scale. The big character reveal really in this show is death. That's the major reveal. Everything outside of that, Billy is probably the second biggest reveal, but we all knew. I've been saying that since the beginning. We all knew it's Billy. But the problem with making a show that asks people to theorize about it is that people are going to theorize about it, and they're going to go bigger than you have planned. My initial reaction, especially to the final episode of the show, was, oh, okay, that was it. There we go. I guess that's the show. And I'd say that is partially the show's fault, but I would also say that that's my fault. That's our fault for getting our expectations up. I talk about this all the time. You can't expect a movie or show to be something that it's not. You just have to embrace it for what it is, or not embrace it for what it is. You can dislike it for what it is, but you can't dislike a show for not being what you personally wanted it to be. That's a stupid way to watch literally anything. Why would you do that? I'll segue pretty well into the things that I like about the show, but before we do that, I just want to take a word from our sponsors, me and you and me. We are all the sponsor in this instance. I've got a few things I'm working on that I want to share with you. If you don't want to hear about it, just hit the skip button for a little bit. That's fine. I totally understand. One, I am doing a podcast with my two closest friends. It's called MPRPH, Motion Picture Retribution Power Hour, and it's hilarious. It's a ton of fun. We get together every other week and just talk about bad movies. We make each other watch bad movies and we discuss them. It's really fun. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. Just search MPRPH, Motion Picture Retribution Power Hour. I just made them watch the Spirit Halloween movie for Halloween, and that was a uniquely special blend of bad. So go give that a listen. Otherwise, I have a free comic book, Edge of Bordertown. It's on my website, johnbonart.com. It is 100% free, and it always will be as long as that website lives. So go read it. We're midway through chapter 4, and chapter 5 is written, and I'm working on drawing it right now. It is some of the best work I've ever done. I would really appreciate it if you would go give that a look, because I think it's really good. So yeah, that's it. Otherwise, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/JohnBonjour. Lowest tier of things that I want you to look at. I just want to make that clear. I'd love it. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you want to give me money, I would really appreciate that. I could use your money. But more than that, it would mean the world to me if you read my comic and listen to that show, because I'm really proud of what we're making. On to the things that work about Agatha all along. I think that the best thing about this show is the way that it ends. I sat with it, it took some time. Like I said, my initial reaction was a little let down, feeling like it was just smaller than I was anticipating. Didn't have the big grand finale that I expected. There is a pretty cool battle right in the end of the second to last episode. I think that's fantastic. The whole bit with Death is really, really good. Aubrey Plaza plays a fantastic Death. She just kills it. But the last episode, and Loki season 1 did a similar thing, but the last episode of this show is not the big Marvel smash-up finale that you kind of have come to expect. It is a touching portrait of Agatha Harkness through her whole life, raising Nicholas Scratch, watching him die, feeling that pain, revealing that the road never existed, it just wasn't a thing, which, huge reveal. I think that is brilliant. I had been theorizing for a long time that Agatha had not actually walked the road. Not once did it occur to me that the road was literally not a thing until Billy made it. In my mind, that's one of the coolest tie-ins to WandaVision. Billy has the same reality-altering, warping powers that Wanda does. Wiccan is so freaking cool in this show. I liked him in the Young Avengers comics, but he's probably the one I connected with the least because I had nothing in common with him. They have completely flipped that on its head. Joe Locke is fantastic. He is great in this show, and I think he is a perfect Wiccan and makes me care way more about Wiccan the character. Anyway, what I was saying about the finale, I love that it is a small, character-focused, dramatic, genuinely, actually sad heartfelt ending to this show. WandaVision did the same thing, well, a similar thing. They definitely did a lot more of the punch-up kind of stuff, but WandaVision did a similar thing in really hitting you in the gut right at the end. These are emotionally impactful shows. I think they play on each other really well. I love the idea that Agatha isn't this horrible person who's just pure evil, but she's also not like a great person. That was a thing I was a little bit worried about, was that they were going to end the show with her doing a full-blown heel turn, making a choice at the end of the road to bring everybody back, and it was going to be this very palatable ending where everybody's happy and nobody actually died and there weren't any stakes. People died in this show. We lost characters and they stayed dead, and I think that that's really impactful and important in a comic book property like this, to raise some stakes, make something actually have a lasting impact. This show stands against the idea that no one stays dead in comic book movies. I appreciate that. I'm glad that they kept her as not a great person, but someone who is redeeming themselves and starting to develop a little bit more and grow and find a purpose in a life where they felt like they were purposeless. That's a solid end to her character, and it's a great mirror to Billy's. Both of them have done some horrible things. Both of them have to reconcile with that. For a show based on a character whose reveal is a kitschy, weird show tune number, I can't believe how nuanced and layered and well-crafted it is. Also, speaking of Wiccan, costume kicks ass. I also liked that Agatha's costumes changed a lot through this episode, through time. The way she talked changed through time. That was a cool moment. The costume design has just been great the whole season. So have the sets, so have the character designs. All of it looks so good. And I just read that it's like the cheapest Marvel show ever created. In my opinion, it's top 3, maybe top 2 shows Marvel has ever made. So I really hope that Marvel learns the right lessons from the success of this show. Lessons like have a showrunner, because that's how shows work. If you're making a character-driven story, put money into the characters. Make good actors, make good sets, make good props, make things feel tangible, just like this. The one lesson that I hope they don't take away from this is just make WandaVision again over and over and over, and you'll make all the money. That's not the takeaway. This doesn't work because it's similar to WandaVision. It works because it's heartfelt and emotional and character-driven and interesting and fun and funny and strange and just unexpected. At the end of the day, I adored Agatha all along. Despite a couple of flaws that it had, it stayed entertaining and engaging the entire season. I hope they make more of something like this. I don't need Agatha All Along Season 2. Suppose you could, but I don't need it. I just want to see more shows and more stories and more comic book properties that are willing to engage things on a level like this. I would love to know what you think. Are you disappointed with the end of the show? Do you think it was perfect? What would you have liked to see different? Just leave your thoughts in the comments below. Oh, and also a couple of extra nerdy things right at the end. Cool that we're seeing Tommy. We saw like a little glimpse of Tommy. Very interesting. I liked Billy's line of like, am I killing this boy so that Tommy can live? Oh man. Really solidly delivered. Catherine Hahn's delivery of no, sometimes little boys just die is also just heartbreaking. So well done. But yeah, I'm excited to see that. We're gearing toward Young Avengers. I would be shocked if that's not where this is going. I don't know when that's going to be. I have no clue. But it does seem like that's where we're going, and I look forward to it. I think it's going to be really fun. Also fun to see Agatha Harkness in her more comic booky form, where she's just like a ghost hanging out with people and being a nuisance. Thank you so much for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on movies, comics, TV shows based on comics, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and comment down below what you'd like me to review next, or do none of that because I am not your dad.